Okay, cool, everyone. Welcome to the section on accommodation at Christ. My name is Ebbaa, and I'm in my third year doing geography here at Christ.
I'm Katy, and I'm a second year medic at Christ.
Cool, and yeah, so we've got a brief presentation here, and then there'll be some time for questions at the end. And yeah, great. So accommodation at Christ is, most of the stuff will be pretty similar to how it is at other colleges. So if you have some idea of how accommodation in Cambridge works, that's great. But we'll go through some of the general stuff and also some of the stuff that's specific to Christ. And so the main thing to know is that your room, or you'll be guaranteed a room by college for all 3 or 4 years of your degree, which is really useful because it means you don't really have to bother getting involved in the private renting market or anything. And it's just quite nice to have that kind of side of your life always sorted. And a great thing about Christ is that pretty much all of the accommodation is either on the main college site or very, very nearby. So normally about half of second years live in the student houses just on Jesus Lane, which is a few minutes from college. But everyone else is on the main site, which is really convenient for being near the library and for being near Upper Hall and stuff. And also really helps foster kind of a nice community because you're constantly bumping into people all the time and you see your friends quite a lot through that. And it also means that you get to meet people from other years quite easily because you often have a mix of different years on the same corridors. And also importantly, you don't ever have to share a room. I don't actually know how common that is around Cambridge for first years to ever share rooms. I know at some colleges like second and third years you'll have like a set, but it is quite nice to know that you'll never be stuck with a horrible roommate or anything, so you always have your own space. And then so 40% of rooms are en suite, which is, I mean, I shared a bathroom in my first 2 years and it was fine, but if you do want that choice, that is quite a high percentage, I think, compared to some of the other colleges of having your own bathroom, which is quite nice.
So yeah, like Ebbaa said, all of the accommodation is either on the main college site or it's really close to Christ's. So I'm currently living in one of the houses on Jesus Lane, and I can walk to college in about 2 minutes if I need to go there for supervisions or any facilities. So it's quite nice that even if you're not living on the college site, you're really close and you don't have to worry about sort of being away from people. So you've kind of got the front of the college and you can sort of walk through all the various courts which have the different accommodation buildings to the back, and then Jesus Lane and King Street are out the back of college. They've got some of the housing which is mainly used by second years. So if you're in first, third or fourth year, you'll mainly be on college site.
Yeah, so this is a brief kind of introduction to room prices. So you pay termly, you pay for 3, I think they're 9-week contracts for each term of the year. And the rooms in Christ at the moment, I think it changes slightly every year, but it'll be about this probably for your year as well. From 1,200 is the cheapest, and then 1,800 the most expensive. And most fall into the between 1.2 and 1.6k per term, so times by 3 for the entirety of the year. But it's bearing in mind, so that fee includes all your insurance, heating, electricity, internet, and cleaning. So you have bedders who will normally change your bins every day and clean your room once a week as well, and also clean your communal areas at like kitchens and bathrooms and stuff as well. And yeah, so you probably know that it's different to other colleges in that you in a way save money because you're only paying for the time that you're in your room, so you only pay for those 9-week periods. So it's a bit annoying because you have to move out your stuff every holiday, but it means that you save money by not paying for your room while you're in the holiday, while you're not staying there over the holiday. And you always have quite a lot of control over how much money you choose to pay. So if you don't want to pay as much money, you can express a preference through that. And then the price of the room, so it's quite good. I think some colleges have like flat rates for pretty much every room, but the difference between 1,200 and 1,800 will just depend on like the size of the room, whether it's en suite, and also kind of categories of basically whether you have to move stuff out every single holiday or you can leave some stuff in the room and stuff like that. So it just means there's quite a lot of flexibility based on how much you want to pay and what kind of room you want, which is pretty good.
So to start with, you've got the rooms in first court, which are the rooms sort of closest to the front of college. And the majority of these are medium and they aren't ensuite. So they're the most expensive category of sort of the like medium not ensuite rooms, but first court is gorgeous. It's very scenic, very academia-esque, if that's kind of something you're interested in. And when they say medium-sized rooms, from my perspective, I lived in one of the smallest rooms in first year, and sort of quite a few of my friends lived in like what they class as a medium room, and it is pretty large. You get a lot of space for the price. So yeah.
And then, yeah, so this is another room in first court, which you can see the tiny image at the bottom left is first court. Definitely the nicest looking part of college. So this room is, again, they have medium and large non-ensuite ones. To be honest, these rooms, you're unlikely, you'd be very lucky to get as a fresher, I think. You can see like the nice oak paneling and stuff. But yeah, second and third year, you can definitely have the chance to get in a room like this if you. So you basically, there's a bit of a trade-off. You get an older, so the ensuite rooms tend to be the newer rooms, which are, you know, tend to be slightly smaller or less photogenic, or you can choose to get a slightly older room and experience like that, but then you don't get the ensuite. So it's whatever your priorities are, really.
So then the rooms in the second court, again, they're sort of the medium ensuite ones, but they're a little bit cheaper than the ones in first court, I think. One of the really big perks of the second court rooms is that a lot of the time they have double beds, which is really, really nice, compared to sort of some of the single beds the other parts of college. And then you also get sort of cupboards for vacation storage. So I think these ones are where you have to sort of move some stuff out in vacation periods, but not everything. So you can just sort of throw a load of your stuff into cupboards. And these are ensuite, which, you know, if you kind of want that privacy and you don't really want to be sharing a bathroom, which is understandable as a fresher, that can always be a good thing.
And then, so when you go through third court, Blythe building is one of the buildings in third court. It's actually where I lived in my first year. And these, again, well, they're called medium rooms, but they're like twice the size of a lot of rooms at other universities that you see. They're pretty good. And yeah, again, mid-range price, but yeah, really big rooms. You are on a floor of about 8 to 10 people normally, and you all share a kitchen and a bathroom, which sounds like quite a lot, but the bathrooms are pretty big and they've been fairly recently renovated. And I literally never had to queue for a shower or anything like that. It was pretty good. And also I think Blythe rooms are pretty good because, as you can see in the photos, like they're so big and you get loads of chairs in them and stuff. And because the kitchens in colleges tend to be quite small, it's quite nice to have like a big social area that you can have in your room so that you have people around there instead of having like a communal area on your corridor. And yeah, Blythe is one of the buildings that has like a mix of first, second and third year. So it's quite a nice dynamic of lots of different years mixing, which is pretty cool.
So yeah, Y building is like the building on the opposite side of the court to Blythe, and it's pretty similar to Blythe. So again, I think it's sort of similar size corridor with sort of 8 to 10 people sharing bathroom and a kitchen. So the one they showed you is a medium sized room, but again, when they say medium size, like they're very big compared to rooms at some of the other colleges that I visited. And some of the rooms in Y are classed as large, and with that you sort of get like a main room with like a separate bedroom, so that's really nice. And again, one of the rooms where it's quite big and sort of open, you can have quite a few people in for sort of social stuff, and there's a mix of year groups, so it's quite nice to get to know people from different years if you're living in the same corridor.
And then so in the same court as these, so Blythe and Y are basically two sides of the court and they're like mirror image of each other, basically the same building. And then on the other side of the court, there is Stevenson. It's a bit of a weird building. I don't think I've ever actually been inside it, but there's basically like a mix of small, medium and slightly larger rooms as well, of all different sizes. I don't think any of them are en suite, but yeah, because it's like a bit of a weirder building, there's like slightly less uniform and there's yeah, just a massive variety of rooms in there, which some of which are pretty cool. And yeah. Go next slide.
So at the back, like towards the back of college, there is New Court, which is also known as the Typewriter. It's classed as one of the ugliest buildings in the UK, which, you know, if you're looking for that kind of architecture, might be appealing. So sort of around the back of the Typewriter is staircase 4. So there's sort of a range of rooms in this. You've got small, medium, large, and the majority of them are ensuite. So they look sort of a little bit different to some of the buildings that we've just seen. I think staircase 4 is quite new, and so it's sort of quite modern looking. Some of the rooms are sort of split level, so you can sort of see in the middle photo where you've got kind of that main area, and then you've got stairs going up to a bedroom, which I think is really, really cool. It's quite big, quite open. I'm not sure how many, I think there's sort of maybe 3 or 4 people sharing a kitchen. I've only been in there a couple of times, but I can remember the rooms all being quite big, it being very open, the kitchens being quite good. And obviously ensuite again is a plus. And then sort of staircase 2, so Typewriter has got staircases 1, 2, and 3. And that's where I lived in my first year. So they're the cheapest category of ensuite rooms, which is quite nice if you know that you want an ensuite room, but you don't want to be sort of paying a bit more for some of the larger rooms. So the payoff is like these rooms are cheaper than most of the rooms we've seen so far, but they definitely are a little bit smaller. But for me, I really liked them. Like it's not a huge space, but you kind of got everything you need. You still have like a massive desk and sort of big windows. There's a lot of light, and obviously your ensuite. And then I think it's sort of 5 or 6 people share a kitchen. On my floor, we shared one big kitchen, but then a few of the other floors they kind of split between 2 smaller kitchens. So it's pretty good, yeah.
And then, yeah, finally, there are the houses. So most of them are on Jesus Lane. I think there's like 2 properties on King Street as well, which is literally the road that Christ backs onto. But the ones on Jesus Lane, I think there's about 8 or 9 college-owned houses, all in a row. And they're like connected up, and well, most of them are connected up in the behind through their gardens. And so it's always second years who have the opportunity to ballot for these rooms, and their houses are in groups of, so either 8 or 6 people live in each of the houses. And we'll explain a bit about the balloting system later, but you basically quite often will ballot in a group of friends, or 2 groups of friends will come together and live in a house. And across the houses, I think most of the rooms tend to be small or medium, and then there's a few larger ones as well. And none of the rooms are en suite, but you know, normally sharing your bathroom with your mates or whatever, so it's fine. And then there's normally 2 kitchens in each house as well. And yeah, that's, I mean, pretty great for second year, because you've kind of made your friends often, and then you get a bit more independence living in college, and the experience of kind of living out. But because they're in, you know, all owned by college, you've still got all of your, you know, cleaning, and you're not really dealing with like your private landlord or anything, so you still have that kind of safety net of it all being organized and managed by college. But then you still get like a great social aspect to, you know, having all your mates, or often loads of your mates in the house with you, and then like different houses that you can go and socialize with on the road as well. So I think a lot of second years really enjoy their time in Jesus Lane. Sadly, mine was cut very short by coronavirus, but I still have fond memories of living there last year. Yeah, I think that's the end of our presentation. I don't know if Christy has anything to say about this, but I think there's going to be some questions as well now.
Yeah. So I think it's a good time to take some questions. So if you have any questions about accommodation, please type them in the Q&A, and we'll see where we get to. So somebody's asked, is the accommodation fee included in the tuition fees that you pay?
No, so normally tuition fees are separate from like your living expenses. So I don't know, unless you're like paying them out yourself, tuition fees you don't really see. They just go from student finance straight to the college. You like fill in some forms, and then every term, a few days before, you get a college bill from the college, which includes your rent, and then so before your first term, you basically get charged £300, which goes towards the money that you'll spend on your card in like Upper Hall and stuff. And so basically every term you get charged for your rent and your food together, and then your tuition fees are entirely separate from that.
Okay. Are there enough plugs in the older rooms? Don't know which rooms you've lived in specifically, but would you say there are enough plug sockets?
I'd say definitely bring an extension lead, but I don't remember there being a massive issue with plugs. It just might be like positioning, not by your beds or whatever, but yeah, just bring an extension lead, you'll be fine, I think.
Okay, and then a few people, sorry, did you want to say something, Katie?
No, sorry.
Okay, then a few people have asked about the Wi-Fi. What's it like in the rooms?
For me, I've not had any issues either in my room in first year or my room in second year. Normally the Wi-Fi is pretty good. Like you don't really have that many issues with it, like having sort of better Wi-Fi in different parts of the college. Edge room kind of occasionally drops out sometimes, but you know, that's just how the university Wi-Fi is. But Christ have also got their own Wi-Fi, so you can kind of switch between the two if you need to. But I've not had any issues really.
I think all rooms have an Ethernet cable as well in case you want really fast Wi-Fi, so that's pretty good.
Okay. Are there sinks in all the rooms without an ensuite? I mean, I guess you've not been in every room.
No, there's definitely not there. So some rooms, actually we didn't do any rooms in Z. There's another building called Z, which a fair few students live in. And some of those have sinks in them, and some in Jesus Lane, like 3 or 4 of the rooms for some reason have sinks in them. But no, not as a rule. But to be honest, like you don't really like, it's not that bad. Just walk to the bathroom to clean your teeth. I never found it an issue.
Are the corridors mixed gender?
Yeah, I think from what I don't think you can. I don't know, Christine, as far as I know, you can't choose to be in a single gender corridor. The only thing that I know, so on the bottom floor of the buildings which face the courts, because sometimes you get like tourists and people coming through, if you're on the ground floor as a fresher, you won't ever be on a court facing side. If you're a girl, I think you'll always be like on the other side, so you don't have people looking through your windows. Is the closest I think that comes to, but I don't think you can request single sex.
Okay. By the way, if anybody has a concern about that, just send in an email and I will send you more information. What do you mean by having a main room and then a bedroom? We were talking about this in some of the accommodation where there's a set. Can you say a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So I'm obviously living in a set right now. So the sort of main way that the set rooms are is that you sort of have one room which kind of functions as sort of almost like a living room. So you'll have like a table and some chairs. It will be quite open. Your desk might be there to study. And then you'll have like sort of a smaller room that will have your bed, cupboards, wardrobes, things like that. So it's kind of just having like a larger space, like split into 2 separate rooms. And it's quite nice to have sort of that distinction between sleep and sort of doing everything else. That answers.
Yeah. Okay. Is there a more social vibe in staircases with shared bathrooms, do you think?
I wouldn't say no, as in not literally because of the bar. I've never actually spoken to anyone in the bathroom. I don't think many conversations happen there. I think some buildings maybe have a slightly more social vibe, but it's more just like how they happen to be laid out. If there's like a more like a larger central corridor or whatever. No, basically, I think the short answer is no. I think how social a place is depends far more on like who's living there than whether there's a shared bathroom. I wouldn't feel like if you have an ensuite, you're going to be really isolated from other people because, yeah, I don't think people meet in bathrooms very often.
Mm-hmm. So how many people share a bathroom? This might be a bit trivia, in first court and in Blythe in third court, if you know. If you don't, we can find out.
So in Blythe, it was about 10. So each floor has their own bathroom and kitchen, so the bathrooms were 2 toilet cubicles and 3 showers and like 4 sinks. But as I said, maybe it's just because I woke up so late every day, but I literally never had to queue for a shower, rarely saw people in the bathroom. First court is a bit more random because they're more like staircases rather than corridors, and because it's a lot older, it's a bit more kind of patchwork. But it would be fewer. So I'd say it's like the maximum 4 people sharing a bathroom, but then it'd be a smaller bathroom because of that.
Okay. How do you choose the types of accommodation?
So in first year, sort of before you arrive, you'll sort of get a form about accommodation, and you sort of fill in a form sort of talking about, do you want an ensuite, like sort of levels of preference, like is it something you really want, or would you just be happy if you had it. You also talk about, you put yourself in a rent band that you'd be comfortable paying, and I think you can indicate preferences for like specific courts, and they sort of give you an information pack with a bit more information about the courts. And then in second and third year, it's a little bit more complicated. There's a ballot system, which I guess we can talk about more in a minute. And you kind of ballot for specific rooms that you want. So yeah.
Do you want to explain the ballot system a bit? Because I think that'd be useful.
Sure. Do you want to do that, Ebbaa, or?
Yeah, I can do it briefly. So basically, yeah, as Katie said, in your first year, you're spread out based on how you fill in the form. And then a few weeks into your it might change actually, because I know they changed it this year because of COVID, because the household is a bit of an issue. But assuming it goes back to how it was for your year, about 4 or 5 weeks into your first term, you have the option to go in a group of up to 4 friends, and so you'll basically ballot together. And then at the end of that term, they basically create a list of everyone in the year ranked from 1 to 130, whatever, and it's completely random. And then by balloting in a friend group, all that means is that you 4 will be like in the same place on the ballot. So you'll pick your rooms together. And then in your second term, over a period of a few weeks, you basically get a list of all the rooms that are available in college. And you go down the ballot order, and basically people pick which room they want in that order. And so if you're higher up, obviously you get a first choice of room, and if you're lower down, then you get whatever's left, basically. But I think it's surprisingly, like, often you'll be like near the bottom of the ballot and you'll still get the room you want, just because everyone wants something slightly different. And then so when you're choosing your third year rooms, the ballot is flipped, basically. So if you're at the bottom, you'll go to the top. If you're at the top, you'll go to the bottom, just to make sure that it's fair. So if you don't get the chance to pick your favorite room in the second year, then you will do it in your third year.
And somebody's asked, are first years placed in the same areas, or are you placed where you're allocated?
You're muted, Katie.
Sorry, thanks. I think it's a bit of a combination of both. So from my understanding, just by chance, a lot of the freshers end up getting put in the typewriter because a lot of people put down a preference for having an ensuite and sort of a cheaper rent in their first year. But I think, to be honest, the freshers are sort of quite spread out. There might be more people in the typewriter than some of the buildings, but there's quite a few freshers in a load of the buildings, and I don't think you need to worry about not being put with the freshers. If you're put in a building where there's maybe only 1 or 2 freshers on a corridor, I don't think you need to worry about it. I know a lot of people who are in that situation in first year and ended up making really good friends with people in the years above, and there's not very much segregation between year groups. Like, you can make good friends with people in different years. So
okay, somebody's asked how you find the study space in the accommodation. Do you prefer to work there or elsewhere, like the library?
I'd say it's pretty good in all the rooms. So every room will have a huge desk, as Kate was saying. Like, even the tiny rooms, they managed to cram a massive desk in there, and you'll get a lamp, and there's Wi-Fi in every room as well. So in theory, they're great study spaces. I never really worked in my room in college just because I couldn't trust myself to work by myself, so I always sent myself to the library. But if you're motivated enough to study by yourself, then they're great spaces to study. But there's also the college library just 2-minute walk away, so you can pick through.
Okay. Someone's asked, can you customize the rooms to your liking, or are there certain things you can't do? And also, are there bookshelves?
Yeah, you can to a certain extent. I mean, obviously you can't do any like major construction work to your room, but You can, most rooms have like a big pin board, so you can stick up photos and whatever. Bookshelves, not necessarily like big bookshelves, but like you'll have like at least a surface, like either a mantelpiece or a couple of shelves that you can put stuff on. They're all pretty functional rooms, and yeah, it's really up to you how much you can, like, I think they're a bit weird about like blue tack and stuff, but if you get like the white stuff that doesn't, as long as you don't like leave any physical marks on the room, I think you're pretty much free to do whatever you like. The only issue is because you have to then take it down every term normally, unless you're in a certain category of room, you do lack some motivation to like make it too nice, because it's just going to be a pain to take it all down at the end of the term. But, yeah.
Someone's asked, from your experience so far, which has been your favourite room?
I really like living in Blythe in my first year, just because I just gave you pretty much everything you needed. It was kind of fairly cheap, but a really big room.
So that's Blythe in Third Court, is that? Yeah.
Yeah, big rooms, fairly sociable building, and yeah, chance to meet a lot of different people. It was good.
Definitely the room that I'm in this year in Jesus Lane. So obviously you can kind of only be in there in second year, but it's been really nice to live with my friends. Obviously not at the moment because COVID, I'm here on my own, but sort of last term it was really fun to live with my friends, and I've gone from having a room in the typewriter, which was one of the smallest rooms, to one of the largest rooms on Jesus Lane. So that's been really nice to kind of have all that extra space. Yeah.
Thank you. Is basic furniture provided, like beds and wardrobes, or do you bring your own?
It's provided, yeah. So you'll get a bed and then usually a few chairs depending on the size of your room. So I think some of the ones in Blythe you just have like 5 chairs randomly, whereas in typewriter you'll have sort of 1 chair, and then stuff like desks, lamps, that's all provided.
It's just, and bedding as well, it's just you need sheets, but they give you pretty bad pillows, to be fair, and a duvet, but you bring your own sheets.
Mm-hmm. Okay, how often are the rooms cleaned, and also to what extent is the cleaning done for you? Do they change your bed, hoover, clean the ensuite bathroom? What can you tell us?
So yeah, as I said before, you have bedders who will tend to come in your corridor and clean it every day, and so they'll change so you have 2 bins in your room, and they'll come in and change those every day. If you don't want to come in because you're sleeping or whatever, you can leave them outside. And then I think it depends. Like, I remember in my first year, my bedder was quite like flexible. So he said, they basically clean it about once a week, but it's kind of around your schedule. So if you're writing an essay, they obviously won't come in and start hoovering. You just, do it another time. I think in theory, because they clean but don't tidy. So if your room is really, really messy, as I know some people were, they will sometimes just, not clean it for that reason. And then, they also will clean, but they won't do your washing up in like the kitchens and stuff, but they'll like spray in the surfaces and whatever. And then, the bathrooms, they do all the cleaning up as well. And so you're very well looked after. But it is, basically you tidy and they clean, I think, is the quickest way of putting it.
Some people have asked how Christ's accommodation fees compare with other colleges. Now that can sometimes be tricky when you know one college well. Is there anything you can say about that, or would you prefer us to send an answer later?
Yeah, I don't think I can say something very, very helpful about it, just because I can't fairly describe other colleges, how they charge rent. So.
That's fine. We'll send you an answer on that. When choosing a room, what factor took precedence in your decision?
For me in first year, I really wanted an ensuite. I sort of didn't want to have to sort of share a bathroom in my first year if I didn't know people. But if that is the case for you, you'll be absolutely fine. But yeah, for me, it was a case of, I think I wanted an ensuite, but I also didn't want to pay too much money. And then in second year, it was very much I wanted to live in a house with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite for me in first year. I didn't care too much about the ensuite, so I kind of knew I could get slightly better value or a bigger room if I said I didn't care about that. So I just said I don't mind about an ensuite, and then the cheaper room, and and then same for second year. I just wanted to live with my friends really, and that worked.
Okay, so a few people asking about noise. Somebody says, in any of the rooms, can you hear the person next door, or is it quite quiet? What would you say?
I've heard that I never actually lived in the typewriter, but I've heard the walls there are slightly thin. But from my experience in Blythe, like the walls are ridiculously thick. Like I think you can sometimes hear people like above and below you more so than side to side, because the rooms are so big. Like you have to be right on the wall, and they'd have to be making noise on the other wall as well. So I've literally never, or in my first year in Blythe, never had any issues with noise. And then obviously in second year, when you're living with your friends, it's unlikely that anyone's gonna be making too much noise. Or yeah, so it's always been pretty good.
Yeah, the walls in typewriter are a little bit thinner. You can kind of definitely hear stuff, but for the most part, like I think if kind of people are keeping you awake, or people are playing music or anything and it's sort of distracting you, most of the time you can literally just sort of go around, like knock next door and just ask them to keep it down a little bit, and in the vast majority of cases people are really understanding, and because they want the same from you. But if you do have any issue with noise and stuff, you can just ring the porters, and then they will sort of come over and deal with it, and tell people to turn music down or whatever. But normally you don't need the porter if you just kind of go and knock and ask people to keep it down.
Okay. Well, I think we've pretty much come to the end of our time for this, bearing in mind that you have another session starting at 4. So I'd just like to say a massive thank you to Katy and Ebbaa. I hope this has been useful, because I know a lot of you had questions on accommodation. So I think we've covered quite a lot in this session. One or two of you have asked questions that haven't been answered, and we will send you emails when we can. It might not be immediate, but we will get to you. So just goodbyes really. So thank you, you two, and I guess we'll see you, everybody else, in the next session if you can make it at 4. Okay, right, bye then.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks very much.
I can work out how to finish it. Okay.